I turned 27 a couple months ago, and it got me thinking, am I the same person that I was 27 years ago? I mean, arguably the story of who I am as a person today began with me being born, so it seems pretty fair to assume that both past me and present me are one and the same. On the other hand, every single cell in my body has died and been replaced since then. If infant me and current me don't even have a single biological cell in common, how can we still say that we share the same identity? And what about the me 27 years from now? Will my 54-year-old future self be the same self that I am today? Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Thibaut and I make videos on philosophy, science, and pretty much whatever subject I find interesting at the time of recording. Today we're going to be talking about long-term identifications of the self. Now I know that title sounds a little daunting, but don't you worry because we're going to break this thing down in just a few seconds. 1, 2, 3. It becomes paradoxical whenever we start thinking about our identities over time. The ancient Greeks had a thought experiment to illustrate this called the Ship of Theseus. In Greek mythology, after slaying the Minotaur, Theseus rescues the children of Athens and escapes with them on a ship to Delos. Eventually, this ship returns to Athens, where the Athenians begin holding onto it like a relic. To commemorate the event, every year the people of Athens would take the ship out on a pilgrimage back to the island of Delos. After a while, the old planks of the ship began wearing away, and new ones would have to be put in their stead. Gradually, over hundreds of years, each individual part of the ship was replaced, until eventually, nothing of the original one remained. So, is this new ship still the Ship of Theseus? Now, in this video we actually won't be interested in answering that question. Instead, what we're looking at is what happens when we do in fact choose to view one's identity over protracted timeframes, as well as any potential benefits that may bring. Let's imagine that after having replaced that very last plank, the Athenians now no longer view this ship as being the Ship of Theseus. That's it, all of the material makeup that had once constituted that ancient relic is now gone, and the ship is now just an unremarkable assemblage of planks of wood. All of a sudden, the ship loses its mythical status, and its perceived value just drops off a cliff. There is really no longer any reason for the Athenians to keep maintaining the ship, and so ultimately it is just abandoned, forgotten, and left out to rot. Now, the reason that I mention this is because often we do a similar thing to ourselves. Sometimes we forget or ignore that our own identities also extend over time, and occasionally we might end up adopting behaviours that'll leave us a wreck. Now, as you may have noticed, I'm British. If you have ever lived in Britain or been fortunate enough to share a flight with a bunch of lads on a stag do, then you're probably already familiar with one of the most quintessential aspects of our proud British culture: binge drinking. Drinking is fun. Drinking can be a lot of fun. Going out for a few pints with your mates will often make for a great night out, and it might even make for an epic story or two. That being said, some of those stories you might regret, like rugby tackling the bouncer and leaving the club with a black eye and a chipped tooth, or leaving your ex 16 separate voice messages about how you two should really get back together. Not to mention the absolute demon of a headache you're going to be facing in the morning. Sometimes when we live in the here and now, we end up adopting behaviours that might not be what's best for us long term. Personally, there are very few things in this world that I'd enjoy more than just devouring an entire tub of cookie dough ice cream. Every now and then I get that sudden urge to just head on down to the supermarket and go grab myself a pint of Ben & Jerry's. Luckily for me, there is also this other voice in my head, a voice of reason, which valiantly tries to fight back against this ravenous compulsion. As somebody who's quite keen on their personal fitness, I do try and at least give off the impression of somebody who maintains a healthy and balanced diet. Now, I'm not saying that this somewhat more mature and sensible side of me always wins, but he does at least give the compulsive me a decent run for his money. It also doesn't help that I'm lactose intolerant. It can be very tempting for us to just give in to all of our cravings whenever we feel like it. However, deep down often we know that the better, more sensible thing to do is just to exercise restraint. To not cave in to the demands and needs of the present self, but rather to take a step back and to try and see things from the perspective of a greater I. Sure, pizza and ice cream both sound great right now, but I also wouldn't mind working on that summer body. I could go out and get absolutely wasted tonight, but I'm also the one who's going to have to face the consequences of that in the morning. It is worth noting here, of course, that if we choose not to identify with the I of tomorrow, then there really is no reason for us to care about the consequences of our actions today. If I do not see myself as that person who'll be facing the hangover tomorrow, then why should I be exercising restraint today? This is what I was trying to illustrate when I said that the Athenians stopped taking care of the ship the moment it was no longer viewed as the Ship of Theseus. When we stop identifying with our long-term selves, we stop sacralizing them. We no longer view their goals and motivations as relevant to us, and so they no longer seem worthwhile pursuing. Seeing oneself as the same self as tomorrow encourages us to urge restraint. To make the necessary sacrifices today, they'll end up benefiting us in the future. And perhaps in order to see the greatest benefits, one must identify with a greater self. I mean, yeah, identifying with the I of a couple months from now might make me start working on my summer body, and that's cool, I guess, but what if I start identifying with, say, 54-year-old me? By the time I'm 54, I would love to own a house. I would like to have had a fulfilling career. I'd want to be able to look back on those years and not live with the regret of never having tried to pursue what deep down I wanted to do. Already these are far more abstract orientations and goals than just going to the gym and not eating ice cream. When we identify with these selves over longer stretches of time, often it allows us to create far more complex and ambitious goals for ourselves. And ultimately it can end up altering our behaviors in the here and now in really drastic ways. I remember listening to one of Jordan Peterson's lectures a while ago where he mentioned a project he had been working on called the Self-Authoring Program. In this, Dr. Peterson invited his students to think about what they wanted to do with their lives, of what their goals were, of where they wanted to be in 5 years' time. To complete the exercise, the students first had to write down their autobiographies. Then they would move on to writing down a future plan for themselves. Essentially, what the students were made to do was to think of their identities over time.
And so you write an autobiography because you need to know where you are and who you are right now, because how the hell are you going to plot a pathway to the future unless you know where you are? And then you need to write about the future because you aren't going to hit something unless you aim at it.
After being given this exercise, those students were about 25% less likely to drop out of college, and their grade point average increased by about 20%. That's huge. Currently in academia, men seem to be lagging behind women. In the US at least, boys are far more likely to drop out of school than girls are. And one reason for this might just be that girls have a better grasp of their own identities over time. We often say that girls tend to mature much faster than boys, and perhaps this stems from the fact that women's biological clocks pressure them into thinking about getting their lives in order within a given time frame if they want to have kids. Men might not experience this same time pressure. I can only speak from my own personal experience here, but as a man I've definitely felt the helplessness of not knowing where I'm going in life. The overwhelming sensation of being lost, of not knowing what to pursue, of what my goal is. Over the years, this has led me to develop some pretty destructive habits, of pursuing only the kinds of activities that offered short-term gratification, like substance abuse or doom scrolling. I basically became a victim of my own dopamine system. Now, I do realize that this is obviously not exclusive to men, but I also feel like it might be a trend which is somewhat more present in men and boys than it is in women. We often tend to view dopamine as the happiness hormone, but actually it's much more the reward anticipation hormone. If you're in front of a slot machine waiting to hit a jackpot, dopamine is released in anticipation of that possible win. Dopamine is the drug that drives us to pursue rewards. If we identify solely with the present self, then we run the risk of pursuing only the kinds of activities that offer us instant gratification. But that same dopamine system can also be hacked into motivating us to pursue longer term, more valuable, and ultimately more rewarding goals and objectives. But we first need to identify what those goals and objectives are. There's this quote by Seneca that I really love. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favourable. And I think that's so true. You need to have a destination in mind if you are to escape falling victim to the needs and wants of the present self. Each of us knows that there are behaviours in our lives that we would like to change, and yet that still we continue to pursue. Sometimes what we truly need in order to change is just to take a long, hard look in the mirror. To sit down and confront ourselves with our identities over time. To think about where we're going and really commit to that identity. To embrace our future selves. We must define our goals in life. Whether it's working on setting up a business, on developing your physique, or on finding a creative outlet, the goals themselves are pretty much arbitrary, but they do need to be defined. Otherwise, without a clear vision of where we're going, that same dopamine system that would have allowed us to pursue them is just going to end up being hijacked by the present self. Remember, the Ship of Theseus was only left out to rot once people stopped believing in it. Just don't let that happen to you. Find out where it is you want to be in life, and truly begin embracing that long-term identity. Now, as I was searching online for that exact Seneca quote, I came across this comment on Reddit which I thought was really good. If a person cares not about their destination, but enjoys the journey, every wind is favourable. And this can also be true. It is entirely possible to enjoy life without having any particular goal in mind, to recognise the fundamental futility in the pursuit of all goals, and to just be content with going with the flow. In a way, this is sort of the Buddhist monk approach to life, to recognise all existence as suffering, and to aim to detach oneself altogether from the needs and wants of the self, to attain Nirvana. And this is perfectly okay, so long as you're not lying to yourself. Personally, I've come to understand that there are things in life that I value strongly, and that I want to strive for, and I realise that when I'm not pursuing those goals, I end up just being dissatisfied with myself. This doesn't mean that I constantly need to be working on those goals in order to be happy, simply that if I don't at least occasionally hold myself accountable for pursuing them, then I end up not even enjoying any form of short-term gratification. I get so sick of mindlessly doom scrolling and going out with friends if I don't also have those personal goals that I'm working towards. I just can't enjoy a holiday I haven't worked for. In the words of Yoshibach, identity is a costume, and you should be able to have agency over that costume. We can choose to identify with any self that we like, and ultimately the one that we do identify with will define which goals and motivations we pursue. Evidently, it seems that it is by identifying with the greatest possible selves that we are able to make the hardest and often the most rewarding decisions in life. And sometimes it might even involve us identifying with a greater I than our individual selves. When I'm 54, I would love to have had kids. Not only that, I would like for them to have received an exemplary education. I would like for them to never have to feel the burdens of financial insecurity. Most importantly, I would want for them to grow up in a caring environment, always knowing that they were loved. Note how in this last example, the conversation is no longer just about me. The I that I am now identifying with isn't just confined to myself as an individual organism, but rather it implies belonging to this greater collective self, this hypothetical family, this superorganism. Ask any parent and they will almost always tell you that they would do absolutely anything for their kids. A mother or a father might sacrifice their own life if it meant saving one of their own. Now, this would never happen if the goals and motivations of the self were only ever confined to the individual. Sometimes we sacrifice what is good for me for the good of the collective. Recognizing one's place within a given collective can often make us feel like we are part of something much greater than ourselves. It can give our lives a greater sense of meaning, of purpose, and ultimately leave us feeling more fulfilled. If I identify with something greater than myself, I'm more likely to pursue greater, grander, and possibly more rewarding ambitions and goals in life. Yes, it is true that I am a self, both today and tomorrow, but I also exist within the wider context of my family, as a brother, as a son, as a cousin or a friend. I'm a member of my community and of this abstract thing that we call the nation state. I exist as all of these selves, both past, present, and future, and I also exist as part of a much greater collective self, of humanity. This idea of the collective self of humanity is something that we're going to begin exploring in the next video, so if you're curious and you want to find out more, stick around for that. We've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored notions of agency, of selfhood, of the superorganism and more. There's plenty of material here for future videos, and I will get around to making those eventually, so if you enjoyed this one and you'd like to see more videos like it, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay smart, but most importantly, stay curious.